I was a Leave voter.
Okay.
Right through the referendum, I was kind of on the fence, didn't really know which way to go with it, and was listening to a lot of arguments from either side, to be honest with you.
Yes.
I ultimately opted for Leave because I don't think I would have voted to go into the EU
Why not?
that point. I mean, I feel regulation stifles innovation, and, you know, innovation is
sort of
what drives forward the... So I work within the financial services sector,
Okay.
and to be compliant within the financial services sector costs you millions of pounds, particularly for the large organisations. There was this whole thing called Solvency II. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that costs billions and billions
you
of
think
pounds.
the financial services sector would be improved by not having access to the European Union markets, or you thought that we might be able to do a deal which allowed us to continue to sell financial services?
If I reference the analogy that your last caller gave, with
just no,
regards to
don't worry about that. Just answer my question. You thought that the
Well,
financial,
So when you leave a golf club, you can still go and play golf there, right?
Yes.
So they don't want you to not come and play, and ultimately,
not at the best golf clubs, Gareth. You try and do that at Glen Eagles.
Yeah, this is true, but you know,
unless of course you can afford to take out a hotel room at Glen Eagles, and that would involve paying Glen Eagles a fortune in the short term whenever you wanted to play. But that, of course, is what passporting was designed to prevent the financial sector from having to do. So I'll ask you again: did you honestly think that the financial sector would be able to improve its position by removing its free access to the biggest single market in the world?
So I'll answer it in an oblique way. If you don't
I'd
mind.
rather you just said yes or no, mate. It's not a trick question.
Well, I'll still answer it the way I want to answer it. So
there we go. There speaks a Brexiter. I will answer your question, but not the one you asked. I'll answer the one that I would rather you'd ask.
Ultimately, the reality
Yes or no?
of our political class is they should be able to negotiate something for us. The fact that they haven't been able to do that is something which many of us didn't anticipate when we were going through. It's
almost as if people who told you to hate the EU because it didn't defend its members' interests are now telling...
I don't hate
Of course
the
you don't. It's a figure of speech. Okay, people who told us that we should leave the EU because it's rather good at defending its members' interests. It's the politicians' fault that they couldn't somehow negotiate a better deal than the one you can actually describe.
There was an interview that was held on the BBC yesterday, so on another news channel yesterday, I should say.
You can say the BBC if you want. Again,
with one of the senior members of the EU. I think it was either Tusk or Juncker. I can't remember which one it was.
You kind of have to for this to be relevant to anything, don't you?
So it was I think it was Juncker. Anyway, the reality was that he was unwilling to accept any responsibility from the EU, saying it was entirely down Britain's responsibility to prove the importance of being a part of the EU.
Oh, yeah,
and it's that intransigence, that lack of willing to accept any responsibility for the way that the vote went, which means I would still probably vote the same way that I did when it went 2 years ago.
So
it's not for everybody.
No,
okay?
I know, but you need to be able to explain why. And I like your line about you want less regulation in the financial sector. And you're perfectly entitled to reject the received wisdom. But what was generally regarded to be the main reason behind the global financial crisis of 2008, Gareth?
So what was it as the subprime problem in the US?
Too little regulation of the financial sector, mate.
In the US?
Well, yes.
But that wasn't. We were
you voted for less regulation in the EU. We feel the ripple effect.
The EU is so heavily regulated when compared to the US. The US has 50 different sets of regulation.
Yeah, so you want less regulation of the financial sector. The last global financial... Well, you did. You came on and said regulation is an enemy of innovation.
I said that the increasing amounts of regulation are stifling innovation because it's too expensive to be able to operate.
Okay.
I'm not arguing against regulation.
Mate, you don't know what you're arguing.
Into my mouth.
You don't know
I do know what I'm arguing. What I'm saying is it's very difficult for all of these negotiations to take place. And the point that I was trying to make initially is there's 17.4 million different opinions for the reason to leave the EU. And the polarised perspective that's often given by Remainers, saying that we're all bigots or we all don't understand.
You're putting words into people's mouths now, and I understand why.
No, I'm not. I'm just repeating what's been said by you and your
I haven't called you a bigot.
No, I know you haven't.
I haven't called you stupid. Well, I call bigots bigots. I call racists racists. I call silly people silly. But I don't generalise about 17.4 million people, not least because it involves some of the people I love most on this planet. But now that everything has fallen apart around you, you have to turn it into this ludicrous he said, she said. Well, I'm glad I voted Leave because you called me names. Gareth, mate, you won. Get over it.
No, I'm not. I'm quite happy. With
Are
the
you?
result.
So you're going for this deal then? You like this deal then?
No, that's the point I made earlier.
You won, mate. Get over it.
I did not anticipate
You won.
that we were unable to negotiate the deal which everybody wanted.
And all the people who told you that we'd be unable to negotiate, how do you feel today?
Won out of this.
No, you won. You won, Gareth.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did. You won.
Everybody's disappointed with the result that's come back.
No, you won, because everybody on the other side told you that this was going to happen, and you accused them of engaging in Project Fear. You won, Gareth.
Actually, no, that's not the case.
Yes, it is the case. You won, Gareth. You won, mate. Get over it. Seriously, this is what you wanted. This was all that was ever on the table, unless, of course, you believe that you could somehow leave a golf club, but end up with more rights, freedoms, and access to the golf course than people who have carried on being members of the golf club, which is, I hate to remind you, exactly what you said when you first got on the line.